There are two sides to every story. The National Broadcasting Company presents the vivid drama of life itself. Broadcasting's original program of Mediation, the court of human relations. And now the man who has familiarized millions of people with the idea of mediation helped to make it a creative force in American life. A.L. Alexander.
There are many people who live orderly lives, but who are in great danger of doing nothing else, who have no interest whatever in the vital concerns of humankind. It's been said that human beings are great only as they excel in the quality of human sympathy. You know these lines from the poem of Donne, with a little poetic license. The lines go like this: No man is an island entire of itself. Every man is a piece of the continent, a part of the main. Any man's trouble affects me, because I am involved in mankind, and therefore never send to know for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee. In greeting the members of our board, I am reminded that that person is richest who, having to a considerable extent perfected the functions of his own life, has a helpful and inspiriting influence over the lives of others. We welcome Judge William A. Wachenfeld, Dr. L. Wendell Fifield, Dr. Nathan A. Perelman. Now, here is one of those situations which we trust can be salvaged by clear thinking and sound judgment to take the place of emotion and aroused feelings. Here is the complainant.
Mr. Alexander, members of the board, do you think that there is a degree to which a human being can be too ethical, so analytical as to seem utterly ridiculous? There is an issue involving a relative of mine which will affect her whole life, her entire future. Her attitude concerning this baffles me. I'm confident that you will settle this.
Suppose we hear from the respondent.
Mr. Alexander, I was taught in my native Greece, where I was born and where I come from, that the only way to live is to be true to yourself. Frankly, I am puzzled. I think I am sure that I am right, and at the same time, I feel that I may be wrong. I came to this country 2 years ago on scholarship to study production methods in the American theater. I met many people. I made few friends, among which was a gentleman to whom I was introduced by my cousin here, who seems to have an entire different viewpoint about life than what I have. I would like to know about this.
Well, now, what is the specific at this time?
I have been here 2 years. My studies now are over, and my visa will expire soon. Under the immigration rules, I am obliged to leave this country with only 2 exceptions. One is if I get a contract in writing that guarantees me a job in my field, and 2, if I get married to an American citizen and naturally I become an American citizen myself.
Now, gentlemen, this is a peculiar thing which baffles me, which I don't quite understand. Here is a man who sees in her qualities which he deeply admires. He has asked her to marry him. This would be a solution to all her problems. She wants to remain in this country. I know, and I know how deeply she wants to remain in this country. And he's a decent person, and he's paid her the highest compliment a man can pay a woman.
I don't feel that I should sell my soul to a man and live with this man in the marriage state when I don't love him. My relatives seem that they don't understand that you can't live with a person when you don't love him.
But this is what I would like to ask. Of all the marriages that take place in this country, who knows what the motives are? Why, there are innumerable reasons why people get married. And it seems like there's something wrong, that if a girl finds a man who wants to marry her, that there has to be a romantic love attached to it, or else she will not marry him.
Because I feel that I am prostituting myself by giving up a principle of mine just for my own convenience. I think that each human being has his own idea about principle in his life. I have mine, and I live for this. I know that remaining in this country is valuable to me, but at the same time I feel that my principle is worth more. And not only this, I feel that I don't have the right to take advantage of a human being's feelings and emotions just for myself, for my convenience.
Well, I believe that I have principle too, but if all marriages were based on an undying love, how many marriages would take place?
If every marriage was based on true love, then we would have fewer divorces and more happiness in our life. Well, I just can't do it. I don't love him.
Dr. Perelman?
I feel like I'd almost rather go on listening than speaking. But I want to put my strength on the side of love. It would seem to me that any marriage that doesn't start out with love, understanding, mutual trust, mutual respect, has very little chance.
But I would
Outside of the moral issue, there's the question of one's self-respect, living with oneself along with this other person. I wonder what the feeling would be in this matter if the supreme prize in it, that is to say, American citizenship, were not a question. If your friend were a citizen, and this were not at issue, would you be so anxious for her to enter upon a marriage in which there was no love?
Yes, definitely. Now, I do not mean to mock love, but I say this, that in marriage, there is always the possibility that love will grow. And I also would like to add, gentlemen, that it seems peculiar that we think of Europeans that they arrange marriages. And, of course, I don't see why this is so difficult for my friend to understand that this could be a marriage arranging this marriage for her, and that this person, he is a fine fellow, she's accepted him, but she refuses just on basically this unrealistic, it's a childish, immature attitude, I feel. And I feel that also that there are many facts that tell us that those marriages which go purely on the basis of this undying love, and I can't live without this person, and these marriages are made in heaven, that, that they just don't last.
What of the other side, where she says to herself, I can't live with this fellow? This isn't romantic love. We're not talking about a little girl. We're talking about a woman of mature mind and mature understanding who has a special value here, one of the most important values in the world attached to marriage itself, that is becoming a citizen of these great United States. Understanding that, it would seem to me that she must follow the direction of her own heart and her own mind.
Judge Walkenfeld?
Well, I think the record indicates the many advantages that this girl would obtain that she really wants if she were to accept this proposal of marriage. And yet, fully conscious and fully aware of all of the profits that she is foregoing, she resolutely says no, and her basic reason for it is a very simple one. She says, I don't love him, and there's not sufficient affection in my regard for him to permit such a relationship to exist.
Do you perform marriages?
Judge, you asked a question.
I would rather not answer that question because I don't see that it has any relevancy in what I'm about to say, and I'm about to say that so she, by her example, instinctively follows the dictates of what emanates from human nature that's so strongly implanted in all of us. And how anybody can advise her to the contrary is far beyond me. If you answer that still small voice of your conscience as to what you really should do in this complicated world of ours, you usually follow the best practice available, and you usually get the best results. I not only agree with this girl, but I have the greatest admiration for her fortitude and her fidelity and her faith and her confidence in herself. And I agree with her. If everybody else followed her example, this horrible divorce rate that's constantly going up would go the other way, which would be quite a remarkable accomplishment.
I meant to say, sir, that when I asked you if you performed marriages, that if you could tell me that if you felt deep in your own heart that each of the people that come to you to get married, if you feel that there is undying love, that there is love there.
That is merely a ministerial act by a certain person authorized by the law to solemnize the marriage. He makes no inquiry, he makes no survey, he serves no other purpose than to do as he's directed to do. But I doubt if any minister ever marries a couple that he doesn't at least assume that they have given their hearts and soul to one another when they enter into a serious bond of matrimony which shall last as long as you shall live.
How about that, Dr. Perelman?
Well, I'm sure the judge is right about that. You speak of undying love. How can we know of these things? I've never yet performed a marriage in which I didn't feel that the people who came to me had a chance. I would excuse myself if I felt that they didn't have a chance. I remember performing a marriage, a very important social marriage in this community many years ago. And the father of the bride said to me, you know, as I walked down the aisle, I said to my child, if anything happens, my dear, you can come back to me. And I said to him, she will. And she did. Marriage has to start with love and with respect. And if it isn't there, there isn't anything that can be put in its place.
I'd like to ask you, Dr. Perlman, why are there so many divorces?
Because some people believe that there are other things than love and respect that can take the place, the advantage of the moment. There are all kinds of conveniences that are bought through marriage. One raises his status. One achieves a certain place in the society. It's right for people of a certain age to be married. There are many foolish reasons for being married. There's only one good reason for entering into a marriage.
Then why should my relative be the exception when it is tearing her apart because she wants to stay in this country to complete her purposes?
Well, I wouldn't concede that she's the exception. I would say that if she is the exception, that this is an exception that we ought to follow as an example.
Dr. Fifield?
Well, I'd like to make two preliminary observations before I come to the main thing that I'd like to say. The first of all is that this isn't a question of why anybody else in the United States or in the world got married. This is a question about the marriage of this young woman. And she has stated why she doesn't want to get married. Now, I think we ought to concentrate on that. Doesn't make any difference whether Miss so-and-so wants to get married or anything else. The question is about her.
I think we should explain, preliminary to that, Dr. Fifield, that as I understand it, the reason for the tremendous interest, approaching anxiety of this complainant here is that these relatives have, in a sense, harbored this person. I think that they've had many complications and involvements and expense, etc. And they simply can't understand how it's possible when this very appetizing, available, eligible young man who's proffered his hand in marriage is ready and willing and eager, and she wants to stay in the country. They can't possibly understand why she shouldn't marry him.
Well, she's given the answer. She doesn't love him, and that's a perfectly logical and legitimate answer. The second thing that I want to comment on is the suggestion that this has been arranged for her. That is never the basis of a successful marriage, never should be. I personally think that marriage is entirely a personal matter, and it's up to the two individuals that are involved and nobody else. If this particular personable individual is attractive and all, and one of the other relatives wants to marry him, that's all right with me. But the question is that here's a woman that says she doesn't love him enough to marry him in order to stay in this country. And that leads me to the main thing that I would like to say, and that is that this whole matter resolves itself around a means toward an end. And the end, as I get it, is the feeling that if you could stay in this country and complete your studies and so forth, you would be happy. Yes. Now, you can't buy happiness by entering into an unhappy arrangement. And that's exactly what is proposed here. To enter into a condition of misery as far as your relationship with this man is concerned would ruin the very thing that you're trying to get. It would make you unhappy about being in this country. You'd want to go back to Greece, and you should.
May we ask you, as the respondent party here, so that this board can understand the sincerity of this case and your real feeling, and I think they also respect the sincerity of the complainant and understand the motivation. You're absolutely sincere when you make this statement, aren't you? I mean, do you feel that there are a lot of marriages that are arranged?
Why, certainly. That you can, for instance, the royalty. Many marriages are arranged just for conveniences, and I disagree with the gentleman that I believe that marriage isn't something that grows in a minute, that marriage is something that takes years to develop by knowing a person. And I have known friends of mine, personal friends of mine, that the heart beat and so forth and so on, but boy, oh boy, after the honeymoon was over, they had trouble. I am saying that if all things equal...
Why take that along on the honeymoon?
Pardon me?
What you're suggesting here is that you take that feeling along on the honeymoon. It's bad enough when it happens after the honeymoon is over, but to go with this feeling of unhappiness on the honeymoon,
this is what I'd like to explain,
it seems to me to
gentlemen,
be
is that my cousin doesn't have these feelings, that this person that I'm telling you that has asked her to marry her, he's a decent person, he is a wonderful person, and my cousin does like him, all things. I mean, it's not that I'm saying, marry this horrible person.
Well, now, what is your feeling about love? What is your idea of what love is and what you'd like?
I wish I could describe it or define it. I think or I feel that it's a feeling that it's a holy feeling to share a life with a person, a whole life with the same person, the same interest, have an understanding, and feel joy in giving more than what you get. Also, I would like to add in this that you want this specific man to be the father of your children, who will become the continuity of your life. You choose this particular man, and this is a holy feeling that drives you to that person.
Well, this is all very well, but I still would like to say, gentlemen, that life is a series of compromises. This is wonderful, yes, but I still feel that it's not a very practical.
Yes, well, I think we feel that there is a certain limited interest that you can take in this matter as the complainant.
Oh, yes, of course.
And we'll have to go by, did you agree to abide by the decision? We know that you have a very definite interest in this because of the association with this man, and we know that the interest in the girl is tremendous, but I think there's a limit to what you can do in order to bring it about.
Yes, this I know.
Yes.
I'd just like to say there are many things in this world in which one compromises. But in so deep a matter as the human relationship of marriage, it has been the curse of the world that people have compromised. It is of our own nation. And the reason that those compromises come is because there isn't complete assurance and certainty at the beginning. And it seems to me that that principle holds here very definitely.
But I would also like to add, isn't she compromising then, because she's turning this marriage proposal down, compromising on her life's work?
No, I don't think so. But if I had to choose between the two, I'd compromise on the life's work with the faith that by doing the right thing, an opportunity for my life's work would be open to me.
Dr. Perlman?
Time will correct whatever problems she may have in establishing herself as an American citizen and carrying on this life's work. By waiting, she can come back here. But time will be altogether against her if she enters into an unhappy marriage.
Well, I think to sum up, the board has clarified this situation. First, it is clear that if there were no immigration problem, would the girl marry this man? That question was asked. And the answer is she would not. Why should she do it now? Dr. Perelman asks. Presumably because it would solve a problem. But at what price? Now, the board points out that it's extremely poor judgment, Dr. Fifield tells us, to attempt to solve one's life situation by entangling oneself in another. And to marry someone you don't love is not only not a solution, but is a quick way to further complicate one's life and end in disaster. We come to the close of another session of the Court of Human Relations and express our thanks to our distinguished mediators. Our proceedings have given us an insight into the hopes and aspirations of people in their search for happiness, and I'd like to share with you this thought of Wordsworth's about the concern of most people for the anxieties and happiness of others. Man is dear to man. The poorest poor long for some moments in a weary life when they can know and feel that they have been themselves the fathers and the givers out of some small blessings, have been kind to such as needed kindness for the single cause that we have all of us one common heart.